Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Legends of Sport podcast. I'm your host, as always, Andy Bernstein. This episode celebrates a very special date in sports history, as well as my life and career. It's the 30th anniversary special of the Dream Team winning the gold medal at the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona. That was on August 7th, 1992. And to commemorate it, I'm thrilled to have one of the Dream Team's assistant coaches, Hall of Famer PJ Carlesimo, as my guest today. I first met PJ on the very first day of training camp in San Diego early in the summer of 1992. We became instant friends. PJ is a wonderfully warm, genuine person. I followed and documented his career as an NBA head coach and assistant coach over the past 30 years, as well as his busy life as a broadcaster. PJ was one of the great coaches in college basketball before we met during our time with the Dream Team. He led Seton Hall to their very first NCAA tournament appearance and to the championship game in 1989. PJ was named NCAA Coach of the Year, but his college and NBA stories will have to wait for another episode because this one is all about our mutual once-in-a-lifetime experience with the Dream Team during that magical summer of 1992. I hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as I did reminiscing with my good friend PJ. And as always, I'll see you on the backside. So welcome, my good friend, my dear friend. I don't want to say old, but my good friend.
old would be accurate, though.
Yeah, we're both old, man, but old in terms of how long we've known each other. PJ Carlesimo. PJ, so great to see you, man. Thanks for joining me on Legends of Sport today.
Appreciate it, Andy. I think you're going to lose your credibility having me on the show, but I appreciate it.
Come on, man. It's so great to see you. First of all, let's establish where you are. You're home in Seattle right now?
I'm in Seattle. Enjoyed it. It's funny. We're kind of here and nobody knows we're here. Every once in a while, I'll do a Seattle interview and somebody will say, "Are you visiting or what's going on?" And I said, "Not exactly. We've lived here for 15 years. We moved here the last year the Sonics were here, 07, 08. And when the team, surprisingly, we thought we'd be here for at least 3 years, moved to Oklahoma City. Carolyn, my wife and your good buddy, informed me that her and the kids were staying here and I was going to Oak City by myself. And I got let go the next year anyhow, and we've been here ever since. I've bounced around a little bit. I worked 1 year in Toronto, 1 in Jersey, and 1 in Brooklyn. But all my broadcasting, I've just stayed in Seattle. We love it.
Yeah, I love it up there too, man. They're going to get a team up there? What do you think?
I think we are for sure, but it's just a question of when. I think Adam is more positive now. For a while, he was even talking, or at least entertaining questions on expansion. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think Seattle and Las Vegas, not that I know anything, but I think if and when we expand or if and when somebody moves, I think we're the two most likely locations. And I think that it was such a great friend. I mean, it was the amount of things that went wrong, Andy, for us to lose the team was incredible. It was a perfect storm of bad decisions by a lot of the people here in Seattle, and all of a sudden the team moved to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I had Gary Payton very early on the podcast, and he was so emotional. He's like, it's like I've been erased from history. I said, Gary, you haven't, but the team, has.
Every time he's here, they were just here recently. They named one of the streets right next to what used to be Key Arena. Now it's called Climate Pledge, where the Kraken, the NHL team, play in the Storm, the WNBA team. And they named the street Lenny Wilkins Way or Lenny Wilkins Boulevard. I forget.
Wow.
But GP was in as he's often in. He spends a decent amount of time here. Sean Kemp also. Sean's got his business, his smoke shop, and those guys love it here. And the players who played here in the past. I mean, Detlef, so many of the guys. Nate McMillan, Dwayne Casey. The first time I see him, every time, first question is, "How's Seattle?" Guys that lived here loved it, and they loved the way they were treated. And I do think it's only a matter of time that we get an NBA team back here.
Yeah, I love it up there. We have really good friends up there. My daughter, actually, the runner-up to the school she ended up going to, which ended up being in Philly, was Cornish up in Seattle. So I came up, we did the tour, it was raining, of course, in the winter. And she loved the city. She didn't like the school, but she loved the city. But we were walking around, and every shop like has a Sonic jersey hanging, or bring the
You still
Sonics back.
see
Crazy.
people are still unbelievably bitter that,
Yeah.
Howard Schultz gets too much blame. He may have, been a factor for sure.
Yeah.
But they blame him for selling the team to Clay Bennett from Oklahoma City. And ultimately we lost the team. And there's still a sizable amount of people, and who will not buy Starbucks coffee
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah.
And they just they root against the OKC. It's
Yeah.
the feelings go deep here. There's no
No, for
question.
sure. Well, I'll be up there. I'm going to come up for a Springsteen show sometime in February if I can
Oh,
I can
great.
afford it, because that's a whole other story. But anyway, so PJ, you and I go back a long way, and I could spend an entire hour talking to you about your career as a coach and where you came from and all that stuff. However, that might be another episode. Being that this is gonna be during the week that the Dream Team, we're gonna release this the week that the Dream Team won the gold medal 30
Oh,
years
great.
ago, August 7th, right, 1992. The Dream Team won the gold medal in Barcelona. Hard to believe that's 30 years ago, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, we were kidding about but that's scary to think that was
Yeah,
30 years ago, and it seems
I
like it was
know.
like last week or 2 weeks ago.
I know, it's crazy. So let's go back. All right. Let's go back to that summer of 1992. The first thing I want to know, because I never asked you this, I never asked any of the coaches this. How did you get the call? How did that all happen that you got the call to be
It
an
was,
assistant coach?
it was really funny because the staff, of course, as you know, the late great Chuck Daly
Mm-hmm.
and Lenny Wilkins were the NBA coaches on the staff. And in those days, actually prior to this very last Olympics, it was always two NBA and two college. This is the first time in Tokyo where it was only one college coach. Jay Wright was the lone college coach. Mike Krzyzewski and I were both on various NCAA committees. We were on NABC, which is the National Association of Basketball Coaches, and we were on an NCAA committee for selection. We were, there was one or two college coaches. There were a lot of pro coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we had a meeting at one of the All-Star games. I'm going to say it was Atlanta. I don't know if that was a year or two before. And we met and we were talking about, this was very preliminarily, they talked about 25 potential candidates for the team, and the 11 professional players that ended up on the team were all on this list. And we had a meeting and that was the end of it. And I think it was about a half a year later, we got phone calls, and I'm going to say it was either CM Newton or Tom Jernstedt, both great friends, both have since passed away. Tom, of course, basically half created and ran the NCAA for the NCAA final tournament, Final Four for the NCAA, and CM was involved both in USA basketball and NCAA. And they called up and said, "Hey, you've been selected to be an assistant coach to Chuck Daly." And I was like, "Wow!" And I don't know what committee that was. Obviously, there was an Olympic selection committee. I don't know who was on it. I mean, Dave Gavitt in those days, CM, Tom Jernstedt, Bill Wall. Those were all the guys that ran USA basketball. But Mike and I both got the calls independently, and of course we're good buddies and have been but you talk about old, for 100 years, the two of us. But we called each other, and it was like, wow, do you believe this? And literally, we found a phone call. We found out, and of course, knew Chuck. I think Chuck was still Detroit, because I remember going out and watching some practices. Brendan Sewer was one of the assistants, and Chuck, who knew very well, of course, but never dreamed that I would get an opportunity like that. And that was kind of the first step. And then it was strange because we didn't. I don't think we couldn't vote after that. Not that it mattered, but I think it knocked us off the player selection committee going forward. But it was literally a phone call. We were involved, but we're involved on the periphery. And all of a sudden we got right in the middle of things.
Wow. So did the four of you get together? Obviously you probably did, right? Before the team
There were
congregated?
times we did, not
Yeah.
often. It was
Yeah.
usually more
Mhm.
individually with Chuck, just
Yeah.
because of everybody's schedules.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was either another NBA All-Star game or a finals or something like that, where we would all be in the same place at the same time. Mike and I would be together a lot, and I'm
Yeah.
sure Chuck and Lenny were together on a regular basis. But the
Uh-huh.
four of us together, I actually don't remember when's the first time we sat down together as a staff.
Yeah. Well, you got four legendary coaches, and you said Chuck Daly, Lenny Wilkins, yourself, Mike Krzyzewski. I mean, how how does it get better than that, right? So finally, the team gets together in San Diego. I was there for that first meeting at Torrey Pines. I heard you talk to Rich Eisen about how your reaction as each guy walked in the room. It's like one future Hall of Famer after another, right? So can you just bring me back to that moment? Because I remember that moment. I remember that moment every single time, the first meeting of every team that I've shot since '92. It's just been overwhelming feeling.
Well, I think obviously we get asked, occasionally about the whole experience, and I always relate it back to Torrey Pines myself, because that's where it all started, and that was
Right.
the first time we were all together. It may have been the first time the four of us were together as a staff. I don't think so. I think we probably met somewhere along the way, the four coaches, but we had a meeting the night before, and Chuck, I remember Chuck set the tone that meeting, and I think it was the players. There was a complete buy-in, and I think what a lot of people don't remember, Andy, and I'm sure you recollect, it was coming after '88, and we didn't win the gold medal in '88. We lost in Seoul, I believe in the semis. I think we actually ended up getting the bronze, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
But,
Yeah.
it was a time. We were coming off a loss, which was really unusual. It hadn't happened since '72 in Barcelona, which ironically, I was there as a fan. I was traveling in Europe that summer and got a chance to go. I was coaching in Italy and Yugoslavia and got a chance to go and watch. And we played a number of the other teams. We didn't play the U.S. team or the Soviet team, but we played some other teams. But anyhow, that was very important. What was probably equally important, and again, people don't remember, '92 was the first time the pros, if you will, represented the United States. It had always been our amateurs. It had always been our college players. And you had a couple guys on the team, and I don't want to mess this up, so correct me. MJ and Patrick and Chris Mullen had been on the '84 team, won the gold medal in Los Angeles with Coach Knight. And David had been on the '88 team, David Robinson.
Yeah.
So as crazy as it seems, only four of those guys, and I'll put Christian aside because Christian would have been eligible as a college player.
Yeah.
But the other seven felt their time had come and gone. They weren't going to be on the Olympic team. And you had a couple, Charles Barkley and John Stockton, notedly, who were among, if not the very last cuts back in '84 when Coach Knight picked the team. So you had two guys that were, I don't want to say bitter, but were incredibly disappointed they weren't chosen for an Olympic team, and their time had come and gone. Yeah. And you had Magic and Birdie and Carl and all those other guys, again, who it was something that the amateurs were doing. So for all of a sudden, for those guys to get the opportunity to play in Olympics was enormous. Now there was also, I'm sure, a little bit, hey, representing the NBA and it's professional players for the first time. But I think it was less that. I think it was more, hey, this is a chance to be on an Olympic team. I never thought I'd get this opportunity. Yeah. And the other seven players, individually and at different times, I can't say every one, but I know I had conversations with at least 5 or 6 of them where they said, this is unbelievable. I never thought I'd get the opportunity to play in an Olympics and to represent the United States. And there weren't as many, there weren't as many competitions in those days as there are now. I mean, now we got the under 18, we got all kinds of international competitions. Maybe the European countries went to those, but the US really didn't. I mean, if you didn't play in the Pan Am Games or the Olympics or the World Championship, you didn't get a chance to represent the United States.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can overemphasize how meaningful it was, especially to those other 7 guys. And then you got Christian, who got his opportunity to play, and he was the opposite. All college guys were saying, well, I'm not going to get a chance to play till maybe I'm in the pros, and I established myself there.
Yeah.
And then you got David Robinson, who probably wouldn't use the word revenge. It's probably not in his vocabulary, but for sure wanted the chance to win a gold in the Olympics. So you had an interesting dynamic in terms of the members of the team.
Yeah. Well, talk about dynamic. I mean, man, that first practice, I was there for the first practice and roll out the balls. Now, obviously, you guys, the 4 coaches, spoke ahead of time as to how you're going to divvy up the work. How did Coach Daly do that? How did he divide up what the 4 of you were going to do? Obviously, he's the head coach. He makes the final call, but there had to be some, division of work there. So how did that work?
He knew, obviously he knew how he wanted to play and what we were going to do. And he certainly knew better than Mike and I knew, for sure. He and Lenny knew the particular players, knew their strengths, knew their weaknesses, if there were any. And, how do you feature this guy? How are you going to play that guy? What groups are you going to play together? Are you going to play the best 5 players if it'd be possible to select who the best 5 were, or you want to put a blend out there? So Chuck had given that an awful lot of thought, as he did for anything in terms of coaching. He kind of said to us, like, what would you like to do? In particular, what particular thing? And I remember Mike, that very first day, it's a transition drill that Mike always still does. I mean, I did the Final Four this year, did Mike's last 2 games as a college coach, and was at a practice when he played his last regular season game, the game where they lost at Cameron to UNC. Mike still does the drill. So, I knew Mike wanted to do that transition drill. It's a drill we all do, but Mike wanted to do that. I think I did some rebounding breakdown things. And Chuck said, look, when we get to Barcelona and when we get to Portland, which again is another thing, Andy, pretty much everybody forgets about. Everybody says, oh, 92, team went to Barcelona and played in the Olympics. There were 2 significant steps before that, 3 really. I mean, if you count Torrey Pines, where we practiced, as 1, Portland, where we won the Tournament of the Americas to qualify for the Olympics, which everybody forgets. And then 3, the week we spent in Monte Carlo getting ready before we went to Barcelona. So it was really a 4-part summer and 3 significant ones before we got to Barcelona. But when we went to Portland and when we were in Barcelona, Chuck had me do the scouting reports and do the tapes. NBA teams are used to looking at a 5-minute tape of their opponent, featured the 5 or 6 best players, the individuals, and then some of the pet plays and how they're going to play. And he had me do that. And Pete Scorich, who at the time was Chuck's video man with the Pistons, was my right arm. So the 2 of us were the ones that broke down the tapes of all these other countries. And, pretty much without exception, there was very little knowledge, which is the complete opposite of the way it is in the NBA. I mean, NBA, these guys are playing against people they know other than the rookies every time. I mean, you don't waste a lot of time on individuals. You might remind a guy, hey, this guy likes to go left or something like that, but they're playing against guys they've been playing against sometimes for 10 years, particularly the guys that were on our team. Whereas all of a sudden now they're playing against, it was really like number 4. I mean, you had the Olympic numbering system from 4 to 15, and it was less names. If it was somebody they knew, like a Tony Kukoc later on when we got to Barcelona, you would identify him by name. But really, for the most part, you were going numbers. I'd say, hey, Andy Bernstein, number 5. And forget about all they were thinking about was who's number 5. Is he righty? Is he lefty? Is he a good 3-point shooter? So Pete and I would put together the little tapes, and the players, like they did with everything. And I say that, and a lot of people always snicker when you say it. One of the things that was most impressive about that group was the fact that Chuck told them the first meeting, look, we're the best team. We have the best players in the world. This is probably the best basketball team that's ever been put together. Everybody thinks we're going to win. If we do anything else other than win, it'll be a monumental shortcoming.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get a ton of credit if you win. Everybody thinks you're going to win and knows you're supposed to win. Having said that, the mantra you hear now sometimes is don't skip any steps. Those guys didn't skip any steps.
Yeah.
They bought in, they listened, they were professional. The thing that impressed me the most about them, putting aside their individual skills and how they prepared themselves, was how well they played defensively, Andy, and how well they passed the ball. As much as, like you say, when I think back to the team, I think less of the offensive plays or guys making shots. I think of incredible defense, and I think of incredible, at times, overpassing, but like the passing was so good, and the way they shared the ball and the way they played so unselfishly.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, I mean, as many locker rooms as I've been in post game, and players will tell you they don't care about stats. Invariably, when the manager or an assistant or a PR guy comes in the locker room with the stats after a game, the players will grab the stats and they're going to take a look at it. I don't remember that team ever looking at a stat sheet after a game.
Yeah.
Guys would come in, the PR guy, Craig Miller, whomever it was, would come in and they'd have the pile of stats.
Yeah.
They'd stay right there on the table. No one would even look at them. I mean, it was really about winning the games.
Yeah.
Nothing else mattered. And it was really impressive. It was great to be a part of. And we didn't win those games because of our scouting by any stretch. But Pete Scorch and I put a lot of time into it. And the players, to their credit, didn't shortcut it. They didn't say, come on, like they weren't looking at the floor. They weren't on their phones, or they would watch the tape. They would listen to what we said. And then they'd go and then just dismantle whomever we were playing.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, there were no phones in those days.
Oh, good point. All right.
We had no phones, man. We had beepers.
And it helped. By the way, it helped.
Unbelievable. So there were so many dynamics on that team. Okay. I mean, you had, the old guard, Magic and Bird, passing the baton, to Michael, right? You had Patrick, David, that rivalry going on. You had Charles and Carl, the whole situation with Magic, with, coming back to play in the All-Star game previously that February, David Stern, lobbying and making that happen. Then, of course, being part of the Olympic team. I mean, that whole, was just so much going on, right? What surprised you the most, either interpersonally, because there were a couple of things that surprised me. I'll give you one before you give me one. I mean, Larry Bird and Patrick Ewing becoming like inseparable sidemen with the Harry and Larry show.
I still have that T-shirt. It's falling apart, but I forget who made that T-shirt up, but it was
unbelievable.
Great. Yeah, Harry and Larry.
They were hilarious together. I mean, who would have thought that, right?
Well, and you said, and just, for our viewers, the 4 stops, whether it was San Diego, Torrey Pines, Portland, Monte Carlo, or Barcelona.
Yeah.
We had a food room. We had a place where the team would eat breakfast and lunch and dinner. And they didn't have to be there, but most times they were there. It was in the hotel. And also often included the families, not in San Diego or Portland, if I remember correctly, but definitely in Monte Carlo and in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And, you'd come into the room and just, the way those things usually work, because guys come in at different times. You never know who's going to be together. I don't know if we came into the room that summer that Harry and Larry weren't sitting at the same table. Patrick and Larry Bird weren't sitting at the same table laughing and just carrying on. And it really became a funny thing, and everybody, joked about it, but it was a real interesting thing. And again, I knew Patrick very, very well, which is an interesting thing to talk about later. Some of the guys I knew so well, and some of them I didn't know at all.
Yeah.
But I knew Patrick very well. Unfortunately, haven't played against him at Georgetown and when I was at Seton Hall. And also we were both Nike, which a lot of the players on the team were Nike guys. So we had made trips together and there was a real friendship there. But I didn't know Birdie at all. I met Larry Bird I might have shook hands with him at some event somewhere, but I met Larry Bird in San Diego, in Torrey Pines, for the
Interesting.
first time.
Yeah.
But I would have never put those two, like saying, here's two guys, they're going to be inseparable this whole time, including their families. I wouldn't have picked Larry Bird and Patrick Ewing, but sure enough, they were.
Yeah. And then, of course, this Coach Daly's famous line that there were three things he wasn't going to do during the Olympics, right? One was call a timeout, two was get out of his chair, and three was miss a tea time, which I think that he accomplished all three of those things. So I went out on the links with you guys.
Did.
I went out on the links a few times with you guys, with you and Michael and Coach Daly, and I think Rod Thorne was
Thorne, yeah, we had some we had Payne Stewart, the late great Payne Stewart was with us in Barcelona. I mean, literally, it was supposed to be one day. I think we played there either the day we arrived or the second day. We might have had to go through that processing, which was the only time we were in the village as a team. And remember the women's gymnastics team came on the bus. They wanted to meet the players and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the tallest gymnast was like 3 feet 8 inches, and they came on the bus and they were talking to our guys. It was amazing. But I think we played. If we didn't play the first day, we played the second. Yeah. And Payne had been in Barcelona and was scheduled to go home and had a great time. And he said, "Why am I going home? I'm going to stay." And he didn't stay for the entire Olympics. He stayed for a good chunk of it. Yeah. And he and Michael played virtually every day, the remainder of our time in Barcelona.
And Michael, by the way, played at least 18 on game days, right? I mean, it's unbelievable, this guy.
That was one of those. There were certain things there were areas that Mike and I and probably Lenny and Chuck just didn't go into. We'd have our meeting, whatever time it was, and whatever time the bus left. Other than Charles, one of my other duties was to go out on the Ramblas every night late with Charles, just to make sure that there was somebody there to help rein him in if that was was necessary. And it was funny because Pete Scorch and I, NBC, which of course was televising the Olympics, would allow us to use their equipment, but it was at the end of the day when the last event was over. So we would go in and they would let us use their editing equipment, and they would give us access to the games that had played. So like we could go watch, whomever, Yugoslavia at the Lithuanian, and we could use their editing equipment, put our little 5-minute tape together for the next day. And by the time I got back to the hotel, it would be 3, 4 in the morning, which was perfect. Charles was just going out.
Just going out.
And I would go. That was part of my responsibilities. Golf tee times was one, and going out on the Ramblas with Charles was another one. So it was. I was under a lot of pressure, Andy. Really.
Yeah. Well, you had to get him back to the hotel. That was the
that was the challenge.
I went out. I went out with you guys a few times. I mean, it got to the point where Sports Illustrated caught wind of it, and they actually assigned me to shoot Charles on the Ramblas.
He was, and it was unbelievable. It was like it is now. Now it wouldn't be surprising, but I think Charles didn't quite have the notoriety that he has now. I mean, if he walked on the Ramblas now, everybody would expect him to get stopped every corner. And I mean, he was
unbelievable.
The Merry Minstrel then. I mean, he was other players and coaches even could walk up and down the Ramblas and no one would bother you unless it was another American. Charles couldn't take 5 steps without getting stopped.
Unbelievable. So we're in Barcelona. We finally get to Barcelona, Monte Carlo. I always put quotation marks next to the training, but they actually were really amazing practices in Monte Carlo. I think there were 2 games, right? Against France or something?
One. We played France. I don't remember the second one, but Civility is right around the corner, so I could be wrong. Yeah. But the difference was, and again, it's one of those, people don't think about it, with no reason to. We didn't in Torrey Pines in San Diego because we had a college team. And really, you help me because I always mess this up.
Well, hold on.
It was Penny Hardaway.
You froze up for a second. So you said you didn't something, and then you froze.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We never practiced against each other, and that sounds crazy. Until we got to Barcelona, until we got to Monte Carlo.
Right.
Because in Torrey Pines, we had the college all-star team that had been picked by the NCAA. I mean, it was great players. I mean, it was Penny Hardaway, Chris Webber, Bobby Hurley. I'm forgetting guys. I mean, tremendous players.
Yeah, tremendous. Yeah.
Half of whom have gone on to be, and more than half, NBA all-stars. Probably some of them, definitely some of them are in the Hall of Fame. but they were coached by George Raveling and Roy Williams.
Right.
So anytime we scrimmaged, not drills now, if we did a rebounding drill or like, I talked about Mike K's transition drill before. Yes, we did that against each other. But anytime we went 5-on-5, it was against the college guys. And there's that famous, we lost the first time we scrimmaged them. And if there was ever a day where we maybe, mailed it in is a bad term, but I mean, really weren't, hepped up to play. It was the first time we played the college guys. And Mike always felt, Mike and I still debate this. Mike Krzyzewski felt that Chuck did it intentionally. I thought as it evolved and now we're 10 minutes left in the game, at that point, Chuck said, you know what, this wouldn't be the worst thing if we lost this game. So even though we were scrimmaging, he didn't put Michael back in the game for the last 3 minutes or, some things he might've done to affect the outcome of the game. He kind of let it play out. And, he made the point after the game, hey, on any given day, if you guys are not going to be focused and not going to play, this is not unheard of. That something like this could happen.
Yeah, well, it definitely humbled them. I mean, there was so much.
Well, it was also, and it wasn't like it happened in a closed gym. I mean, it was around the world. 3 seconds after the final was over, guys were filing their stories. I don't know what was the medium at that point. It may not have been on the internet, but it was close to around the world very quickly. Hey, the U.S. team just lost to a group of college guys. Now, calling those guys a group of college guys might be selling them a little short. That group of college guys probably could have won the gold medal also. But
but rumor has it that just ticked off at Michael Jordan beyond belief, right? That the next day
it ticked off a couple of the guys, particularly the ones that weren't in at the end. And they were kind of, I don't want to say they were upset with Chuck, but they kept looking down the bench like, hey, put us back in. And Chuck, either because he didn't want to step on the guys' toes, because the guys that were in were pretty good players themselves, or he said, you know what, this is not the worst thing if it happens. So he let it play out. And I do agree with Mike in that Chuck was happy or was not displeased to have this to kind of hold over their heads right away and say, hey, and that was early. And that was one of the first couple days. And we weren't in Torrey Pines that long, but that was one of the first couple days. And then when we got to Portland, again, we should say the next scrimmage was about a 50 or 60 point beatdown when we played the college guys. So the message was sent then as to who the better team was.
The old sleeping giant thing.
Poke the bear. But when we got to Portland, the schedule was such, and I'm making it up, but I'm close. If we were in Portland 10 days, we had 7 games in 9 days. So we literally didn't practice. We had games and we had shoot-arounds, and there were a couple games. I don't even think we had shoot-around. We just had a film session in the hotel and and it was in the old Portland. It wasn't in what we call the Rose Garden nowadays or the Moda Center. It was in the Glass House, the Portland Coliseum.
Let's talk about that for a second. Do you remember the team photo, the official team photo? You probably don't. It probably just didn't even register with anyone except me. that all of a sudden Craig Miller says to me, we're gonna have to get a team photo before we get out of Portland because we're gonna need one for by the way, right?
Exactly.
So they had to scrounge up an American flag that was big enough. And then there was no place to shoot it. We couldn't do it on the court because stuff was going on. They didn't want an empty arena. So we did it in the basement. Do you remember this?
I remember it being in the basement, but I didn't know the why.
Yes,
that was the why behind
it. And I had very little lighting with me, the whole thing. And I set it up and it had to be choreographed. Craig and I did the choreography as to who's next to who and who's in the front, and the whole thing. And it looked pretty good. I shot one picture and half the lights went out because the fuse blew. Right.
Oh my God.
And I remember this Michael Jordan looking at me like amateur time. What's going on? So the end result of this whole thing, PJ, the whole thing is that we come out with this nice team picture. It ended up being the picture of the team, and it was used on the cover of Alex Teixeira's book and the whole thing, right? Somebody gets a letter. I think it could have been Craig Miller or somebody, that we had hung the flag wrong behind them, that the stars are going the wrong direction. Now, who knew that,
Exactly.
But to this day, I look at that picture, I just laugh
I
because
got I got to take I got to take a look, and it was.
it
I
is
thought about
hilarious.
it many times. I got the Portland job,
Hmm.
I guess 2 or 3 years later. My first job was Portland
Right,
Trailblazers,
right.
and my first year there, we still played in that very building, the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And I remember how, first of all, how cold it was. One of the only decisions I ever made there that the players loved was, I think it was after our second preseason game. It wasn't even regular season. It
Mm.
was freezing in the Coliseum in the morning, and
Yeah.
they wouldn't turn the heat on. And by game time, it was fine. And when the people got in the building,
Yeah.
and I said after the second, I think it was the end of my second shoot around, and I said, "That's it. We're not shooting here anymore. We're shooting at Lewis and Clark College." There were no practice facilities.
Crazy.
There were
Yeah.
two, I think. Seattle had the first one, the
Oh,
Furtado Center, but I said we're going to shoot in Lewis and Clark, and the
yeah.
players literally started clapping. They actually, wow, this guy's smarter than we thought he was. I mean, he actually had a good idea, but it was no,
Oh my
the
goodness.
very place where we took the
Yeah.
picture and where we played those first games. But again, getting back to it, we never practiced there.
Hmm.
So again, we never went 5-on-5 against each other. Fast forward, we had a little bit of time off between Portland and when we left for Monte Carlo. I don't remember how much
Yeah.
time.
I think it was like 10 days or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we met up again in Jersey. We had a charter flight from Newark to Nice,
Hmm.
and got to Monte Carlo, and we practiced in a really nice gym,
Yeah.
and in France, right in Monte Carlo.
Hmm.
And Chuck, I'm sure, thought about it. We talked about it probably on a plane going over,
Hmm.
but all of a sudden we kind of said, well, guess what? Now when we go 5-on-5, it's our own guys. It's like
Yeah.
what everybody would think a normal practice would be,
Hmm.
but it hadn't happened in San Diego.
Yeah.
It hadn't happened in Portland, and it wasn't going to happen in Barcelona either, because we never scrimmaged against each other in Barcelona. So
Right.
the only place where these guys played 5-on-5 against each other
Mhm.
was in Monte Carlo. And
Yeah.
that's why the best practices we had, no comparison, were in Monte Carlo,
Yeah.
because you can divvy those 10, 12 guys up any way you want. You're going to have a pretty good matchup.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we were in Monte Carlo, which was amazing, but you could have been at Rucker Park. You could have been at the Drew League. It didn't matter, man. That was some incredible basketball. I don't think I've ever seen hoops like that,
No,
especially in a
you
practice.
wouldn't. And the same thing you talked about. You talked about how some of the guys that were on the bench
Yeah.
at the end of the scrimmage when we lost to the college guys, that was at UCSD, which is Carolyn's alma mater,
Oh,
ironically. When
yeah.
we were at the University of California, San Diego, in their gym,
Mhm.
when we lost, guys were upset because there's an incredible pride factor
Mhm.
among the great players, and
Mm.
those were the greatest that I think that there
Yeah.
ever were. At least we're ever together on one team.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to motivate them. Like if it was a one-on-one drill or there was any kind of competition, like, one player against another, if anything, you had to be careful that it didn't get out of hand, because again, they didn't want to lose, whether it was a
No.
drill or, a practice segment, or whether it was an actual 5-on-5 scrimmage. So, the best scrimmages, the best basketball, probably the team played the entire summer was there in Monte Carlo.
Yeah, incredible, man. I mean, it's such special memories for me watching those guys play. Then we get to Barcelona, of course, and not only did you guys win, I mean, it was like destruction from day one, right? You got visiting teams going out on the court to take, what was then called
Well,
selfies,
it was
but
crazy. I mean, we had a
crazy.
little bit of that. We were,
Yeah.
the competition was obviously better. In Portland, it was just the teams from the Americas. Now,
Right.
there were a couple decent teams,
Yeah.
but it wasn't even close to the level of competition that we were going to face in Barcelona. But it didn't make any difference. I mean,
Yeah.
these guys just came out on the floor,
Yeah.
and there really was. I don't think it diminishes what we did, but there was little or no thought in anybody's mind that we played that they were going to win the game. And that those days are gone now.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
players might realize
Yeah.
when we go to an Olympics, like Tokyo, they had their hands full winning
Oh,
in
for
Tokyo.
sure. Yeah.
And going back
And
to
before that. Yeah.
Rio, Beijing, London, anywhere we've played.
Yeah.
And by the way, Athens, we did not win.
Right.
After that,
Right.
we did win the next two, of course, in Atlanta and in Sydney. But these guys, the teams we were playing, it didn't enter their mind that they could win the game. So that didn't make for really competitive games.
Right.
And you say it's not good when guys are trying to do interviews and our PR people or the coaches are going, look, can we do the sign the pictures and stuff after the game? Let's not do it before the game or before they throw up the first ball. So it just became a thing when the game was over. You'd shake hands. And immediately, like as they were shaking hands, guys had things they brought with them. Will you sign this or will you take pictures? So
I had people handing me cameras.
It was an event.
It was crazy.
That's because you had Lens Kid written on your license plate, so they knew. But it was literally, it was an adventure to try to get the team back to the locker room after a game.
Yeah,
because there were so many. This is not requests from media, accredited media. This is requests for the other team, the other coaches, or the assistants, whoever it was on the other team. Can you take a picture with me and can you sign this? And again, that's just what the players dealt with the entire summer, but especially in Monte Carlo and Barcelona.
So PJ, let's go to August 7, 1992. The team wins the gold medal, right? Foregone conclusion, yes. But can you describe your personal feeling, that moment? The horn sounds, they're bringing out the podium, everybody gets. Now the coaches don't get gold medals, which
a lot of people,
really surprised me.
Like, can I see your gold medal? I go, I don't get it. I didn't get a gold medal. They said, what do you mean? I said, like, do you think Mark Spitz's coach got a gold medal? Mark Spitz got the gold medal.
Right.
The players get the medals, which is great. There's 12 gold medals. Now, USA Basketball, of course, took care of us with a very nice ring. I think we got watches also, but we definitely got beautiful rings for winning there. But and you're not on the podium. Like when the podiums where they give, the ceremonies that we've all seen a million times where the different committee members come out and they hang the medals on you. And then, you stand there and the gold medal team gets to hear their anthem played. And in basketball, because it's a team sport, which is, still pretty much the outlier in the Olympics, it's a huge day. So like you had three teams of 12. It was ourselves. And I'm showing my age again. Was it still Yugoslavia in those days? Team.
Well,
I think it must have,
yeah, it was, and Lithuania, right?
We beat Tony's team, and Lithuania got the gold. The bronze. It was their first time playing as a country, so it was incredibly meaningful for them. And one of our Seton Hall players, Arturas Karnisovas, was a young guy on that team, and of course now he's the vice president or whatever his title is in Chicago, doing a great job. But and we stood over there, myself and Mike and Lenny and Chuck, and it really was like when we had won, when the horn went off, and everybody's hugging and celebrating, and it was great. But to see the guys get the gold medals was amazing, and to hear the anthem played, to hear the Star Spangled Banner played, and the flag to be, as they raised the flag up, was just, you really can't describe it. And it doesn't matter that we believed it was going to happen. We were pretty sure it was going to happen. That and experiencing it and actually being there and hearing it and seeing those 12 guys, how proud they were, to be standing on the dais and to hear the anthem played was fantastic.
It was such a moment. I mean, I had to shoot it and all that, and there were a lot of restrictions, like I couldn't go up to the podium, and I had but it was such an incredible, and I felt like every NBA finals, I feel this like sort of, okay, this has been like an 8-month, marathon, and finally they're winning, and it's beautiful. And then we go back to the hotel, and what was crazy was, first of all, the hotel was like 40 minutes almost from the arena.
Oh yeah, from
police escort, the whole thing.
Yep.
It's late. It was super late at night. I remember it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, at least by the time we got back there. The guys were still in their uniforms. They didn't take showers at the arena.
No, we didn't. We usually got out of the arena fairly quickly. That night, obviously, we didn't.
Yeah.
And we were leaving too, right? We were leaving.
There was going to be a party, and then everybody was getting, in the bus or the limos and they were bugging out. But
Yeah.
so I got all these great pictures of guys still in uniform with the gold medals and the whole thing. And I had a little backdrop stashed away for the entire time I was in Barcelona. But it was just such a monumental time. I got to bring my dad to most of it. And you were so incredibly nice. You and Mike, especially Coach K, were just so wonderful to my dad. And what a great father-son moment that was.
Oh, you're kidding?
It was beautiful,
Incredible.
PJ. And I got to tell you, so many friendships. I mean, I didn't know you before that experience. And, of course, I had heard of you and your success at Seton Hall and everything. But to get to know you and we all became really like a family.
No, it was fantastic. And again, having our, I was lucky enough. Both my parents were still alive. They were there. I mean, getting to know the players and their families. Most of the guys were married.
Yeah.
Their wives, their kids. I mean, I still see. It's funny every time I see David Stockton playing. But I remember when John, all his kids, and they were so little then, and so many of the thing. Randy Ewing now working for the NBA. I see her, at the finals every year. And again, we all go back to knowing them when they were the ones that were alive, when they were youngsters, and the chance to spend some time with them, specifically in Monte Carlo and Barcelona.
Yeah. And like, I remember Karl Malone feeding one of his kids, was a toddler, and on the charter, feeding the kid. And I think that kid recently got married or had a kid or something. It just blows me away.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Unbelievable. PJ, you're just a great friend. I'm so, it's one of the byproducts of this job is that we get to meet incredible people, and we remain friends, and we stay friends, and we have these memories together that no one can ever take away from us, man. And hopefully we'll be talking about this at the 40th and, God willing, the 50th, right?
I'm down for it. I'm more confident you're going to be there than I will be, but I appreciate it. But it was, those of us that were so lucky to share that experience, and it's incredible. And fortunate for me, I get a chance to bump into you at games during the year, and particularly in the playoffs and when it gets to the finals. But it's as memorable as all of these events are every year. You hate to say it, but nothing touches what happened that summer in '92.
Oh, absolutely. I say all the time, if I could have retired after that, like if I was my age now, then forget about it. You could never top that in a million years.
That was good. That was good enough. Good way to finish.
Well, listen, please send my love to Carolyn and your boys, and tell me quickly what's going on with Kyle and Casey right now.
Kyle's believe it or not, he's a freshman at Eastern Illinois.
Wow.
He signed a letter of intent. He's been in summer school. I just visited him, saw the campus the other day. Marty Simmons, who was a real good player at Indiana, at Evansville, and formerly the coach at Evansville, is now at Eastern Illinois. Kyle's going to be a freshman there.
Wow.
And Casey's a junior at Seattle Prep, getting ready for football and basketball. So if I ever start thinking I'm not getting old, all I got to do is look at the two of them, and it comes home right away.
Hey, I'm with you, man. I have three in there, like, or sort of the end of their 20s. I have a 14-year-old. So
I know you're talking about you visiting up here with your daughter, so you got me beat. I got a later start.
Well, I don't know, man. It's amazing, and I wish them both well. And I hope I get to see you and Carolyn along the way. Maybe at Hall of Fame. I don't know if you're going to be there, but
yeah, exactly. Manu's going in.
Right.
Every year there's a couple of friends going in, but Manu in particular, somebody that we got a chance to spend, and our family, frankly, got a chance to spend a lot of time with him. So for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's so great to see you, PJ. Thanks so much. Thanks for so many years of friendship, but these memories that we have together going back to '92, man, we'll never be able to top it, but thank God we have them, right?
Absolutely, Ann. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. Wow, what a fun conversation that was with my friend PJ. So much fun reminiscing about our magical, amazing, once-in-a-lifetime experience with the Dream Team that summer of 1992. As always, a big thanks to my producer and head researcher, Veronica Ahn, as well as our writer, Kaya Ginsky. Remember, you can find us on the iHeart app and online, as well as Apple and Spotify and your favorite podcast platform. Keep following us on Instagram at Legends of Sport, our Twitter at Legends_of Sport, our website, legendsofsport.net, and our YouTube and TikTok channels, Legends of Sport. My photography can be found on Instagram and Twitter at ADB Photo Inc. So, folks, we'll be back next week with another great episode. You know that. But until then, stay safe and stay well.